Hello everyone, welcome to my Half 2 2024 Nintex Automation Cloud Roundup. This time of year is great for reflecting and looking back on previous months, the whole year, your whole life. Well, I'm going to choose a 6-month period where the Nintex Automation Cloud product management engineering teams have released some fantastic features and functionality. Show you some demos, where you can find them, how you can put them to good use. So, in 6 months, sort of testament to the team's work ethic, it was a lot to fit on one slide, just the highlights even. So one of my main call outs to you as a viewer of this video is jump on to help.nintex.com. There's a little sub menu there called Release Notes. Have a browse. Take a look at all the things that have been released in the last 6 months for the Nintex applications that you're most interested in, or the Nintex applications that you've never even heard of. There's definitely going to be some nuggets of information in there that you'll find useful. The highlights for me sort of split into forms, overall Nintex Automation Cloud capability and configuration, and then tweaks, edits, and additions to workflow. On the forms side, certainly a push towards building forms quicker and more efficiently. We know there are still customers out there who are using Word, PDF, Excel, and even paper to do forms and data capture and data input. Many other rudimentary applications and functionality as well. So really around how quickly can we build forms, and then how efficient can we get that end user through those forms. So looking at things like translation and accessibility, because we appreciate that the audience is not just people that have English as a primary language with perfect vision. So looking at translation support, not just for the overall forms, but for the plugins that you're building, as well as 508 WCAG accessibility improvement. So how does a screen reader interact with that form? Looking at things like saving. We know that forms are getting bigger. We know that people are using them for far more enterprise-grade solutions, and they want to revisit those forms. So saving draft task forms, resuming an authenticated start and task form, for instance. And then looking at the data that we bring into those forms as lookups and data sources. Because it's not just all about like a plain choice control or a drop down that's pre-configured from the form. We want you to be able to tie in the connections to your business systems, but also looking at Nintex tables. And that's why we've added different data types to those Nintex tables as well. So long text, multi-select, date, as well as being able to reference other columns in and other bits of information in other tables. So starting to bind all the things you need into a single point solution. Then we're moving on to some of the workflow enhancements that we've made. Improving the Azure SQL action set, because that's a really important underlying connectivity third party. Adding on-premises SharePoint actions and query a list and attachment actions. A couple of tweaks to things like format date to string, Nintex eSign, tweaks to the API, as well as improvements to export and import on workflow and on extensions. Upgraded the rich text editor, added a smart response to assign a task, because you don't always want to be bound by approve reject. You want to be able to take a response that may be slightly out of those realms that still indicates a positive or negative sentiment. Heck, we even support emojis. Reusability is massively important. So if you've got a group of actions that you use a lot, you can now save them as a snippet and reuse them from the toolbox in other workflows. And finally, we appreciate AI is not for everyone, despite the fact that it's absolutely everywhere. So the ability to turn on and off the AI features that you as a developer are most comfortable with, and those that have been approved for use by your business. Undoubtedly, the most important feature for me the last 6 months has been the integration of Nintex apps. Using the capability, the incredible UI UX capability of Squid, the application, the Nintex acquisition from earlier in the year, being able to sew that into your form and workflow solutions. So what I want you to start thinking about are all of those forms that you've built that you may be embedding in a SharePoint page, or all of those workflow data that you're using a BI tool to represent. You no longer need to do that. Nintex Apps is an aggregation of your forms, your workflows, your data sources, your connections, the ability to build and represent that data on a page and wrap that as a solution. If you go into your My Nintex and you kick off a form, that's probably got a solution at heart. Nintex, we're moving away from Nintex being as a utility workflow for SharePoint. That was a long time ago. We're now in the solution space. So I want you to start thinking about what can we do with Nintex Apps that's going to increase my end user experience. And it forms a very familiar path. As you know, with everything that you build with Nintex, it's intuitive, it's highly flexible, it's very versatile in its approach to design, but it does allow you to create powerful solutions. The ones I've seen our end customers build already talk greatly to that. From LMSs to customer portals, to partner portals, to incident management solutions, the possibilities are pretty endless. Now, I'm not going to dive into apps at greater detail here. That would be a session all on its own. What I'll do is I'll link to a great video that my colleague Ranjit has done below in the description of the video. Feel free to browse. Grab yourself a trial from nintex.com or within your Nintex Automation Cloud environment. Get started with apps, give us your feedback, and reach out for a demo. So let's get into the demo. The first thing I do want to touch on is apps. I want to give you a quick look at what apps is and what it can do. Very simply put, this is a page that draws on data, that draws on connections, that then represents the data that lives within an underlying workflow. I've embedded forms in here. We've got components like graphs and charts and calendars. So what I'm doing is I'm taking away from that somewhat fragmented approach, shall we say, from a form kicking off a workflow and then having something else as the wrapper around it to being that wrapper itself. So now I have my components on the page, I've got my navigation on the page, I've got my custom style sheet, my look and feel, and now I'm able to embed forms. So I could build my own apps form, or I can embed a Nintex Automation Cloud form that would submit to kick off a workflow that's then going to aggregate data perhaps back into my pages. So as I said, review your forms and workflow solutions that you've built, thinking about wrapping them with an application that's much, much more intuitive for your end users. Okay, let's move into the NAC bells and whistles. So I'm going to start with settings. So the one that I want to cover is turning on and off AI features. So fairly important to me because we might have an organization who may well want to test these things before they put them into production. That's perfectly acceptable. So we want to review this, turn it on in a development tenant, and then push it into production. So I'm going to turn on my smart response detection, and that's now going to be available as a configuration item within my workflow. Nice and easy. You'll see the other ones, they've been covered in previous videos, from PDF Forms Connector to the Forms Generator, Auto Translation Support, and the one I'll cover as well is the Nintex Assistant for Forms. Let's jump up to Automate. So now you can also see within my workflows, I've now got the option to configure the workflow here. So I don't have to go into the workflow to do basic configuration around the variables that are in use, the connections that this workflow uses, its assigned use. I don't have to go through the process of publishing to change things like these or to jump into the canvas to make those changes. So configure workflow, that was something new in the second half of the year. This should make it easier to do things from your central canvas rather than jumping into the actual workflow itself. Okay, let's go to my create workflow. Most of the new things that I'm going to show are within the form space. So I'm going to create a form for an imaginary use case. Now, given it's the festive time of year and Mr. Claus, Mr. Kringle, whatever you want to call him, Saint Nick, he's been driving this battered old sleigh for quite a while. And he's going out to the local sleigh dealerships to test drive a new sleigh. However, most of these dealerships take one look at him and think he's a shopping mall Santa Claus, just rail kicking. You know, he's out there doing a little bit of test driving for fun, so we're going to need a test drive consent form. That's not something I can buy off the shelf, sadly, so I'm actually going to have to start from scratch. Now, within Nintex Forms, I could import a PDF. We don't have one, for Slay test drives. It's pretty bespoke, but I'm going to use the new AI assistant to build that form for me. And as you can see, this is a bit of a step up from start with AI. I can generate the entire form from here. I can ask it to change page layout. I can ask it to apply themes and styling. I can even ask it to create rules or configure individual controls. So pretty bespoke set of capability within that generative AI function. Now I'll keep it pretty straightforward for the sake of the demo today, but I'd love to hear what you're using this for, what challenges you might have had with it, and also let me see some of those great forms that you've built. So what do we want to do? We want to generate Slay test drive. This will be very interesting to see how generative AI goes with this. Consent form, we'll say it should include driver details and vehicle detail controls. Also add a signature panel. I can spell today and make it required. Okay, let's see how it goes with that. Add a blue theme. Let's see how it goes. Obviously there'll be some things that we might want to tweak because AI is not going to take all of our jobs this quickly. It's done an okay job. It's telling me what it's doing as it goes through. It's done the blue theme, it's added its signature panel, made it required, as you can see from the red asterisks. And obviously I can keep on going back and forth. I don't think I need to collect feedback, so let's just pop that out. We'll make some quick changes. Slay test drive consent form, let's pop that underneath the signature. Vehicle details, the make, the model, and the year of manufacture. That's okay. The other thing I think we'll do is, let's do some pages. I could do this with the Gen AI, but I'll add a page for driver details, and I'll add a page for my vehicle details. And then what I'll do is I'll just drag that vehicle details into my second page. There we go. And I'll add a date control. I see, again, I could use the generative AI to say add a date control. We'll make that. Let's make it read only. Yes, and I'll set a default value to the day that it's actually being signed, which is now. So I could have probably done this with the Gen AI. So I think we've got everything that we need. Last but not least, let's do a file upload for license. Okay, that'll do. That'll do me. That'll do me. Let's make this one required. I'm not going to style this one. I've got my blue theme. That's pretty trendy. But what I do want to do is change the navigation flow. So I want to change this to sequential. And I want to show you the rules-driven pages. So very, very quickly, I won't go through the whole configuration, but now what we've got by selecting that is a page rules option. So I could make, let's say, show vehicle. So if, and I can go through my controls on my driver details. So I could say, you know, if date signed is filled, then vehicle details is enabled. Or if signature is signed. So I'm not going to allow them to get to the vehicle details page until that is signed. So if I create that rule, I'll be able to see once I sign the actual form, then my driver details page becomes enabled. Otherwise, I'm not going to be able to do anything. So think about page rules as dynamic behavior. Hugely requested piece of functionality there as well. Okay, my simple form. Let's publish. I think I have all of the bits and bobs that I wanted to show from forms. Nintex Assistant has completed my form. Now, the other thing I wanted to show was tasks. So we want to go into my task. Now, let's say this task is going to go to Mrs. Claus. And Mrs. Claus has got to approve Mr. Claus's midlife crisis that he's having, right? Maybe he's gone out there and he's gone a bit rogue. She didn't approve that he was going out to buy a new toy. And we've now got this smart response detection. Because I can't add every outcome, right? I'm not going to build a workflow that has got every possible outcome. From Scotland, we used to do I, so we can pop in that one. If you're living in the matrix, then you might be just responding with a 1 and a 0. I'm not going to do that, okay, because that just creates a really, really bad experience for those that are building my workflows. So what I do want to do is that smart response detection. It's going to basically use a bit of sentiment analysis to decide if the response is to the positive or to the negative. So let's assign the task. So task name, let's just go and pop that in. Approve, reject, completion rules is all in. I'll just send this to myself because I'll show you the email and the response. Sequential's fine. Sender display name, car dealership, sleigh dealership. Let's get my use case right. Subject, I'm just going to copy this one. Okay, and then I can start to build my response. So whatever I want in that message body, so we can say, Dear Mrs. C, the man in the red suit is about to purchase a new sleigh. Do you approve? Now we can pop in some vehicle details here from the form variables, so we can say the make, we can say the model. She might instantly know that he's sort of barking up the wrong tree here, or that there's enough room for all the presents that he needs. Yeah, let's make sure he's not doing, maybe we should have added number of seats and boot luggage capacity in here. So make and model. And then we've got my footer text. So she'll get that and she'll be able to approve, reject. And then what do we do after that? Well, we would maybe send an email back to Mr. Claus to say it was approved or it was rejected. You get the gist. You can build out your workflow. Okay. Let's publish real quick. So let's call this Santa's sleigh consent form. Publish that. Now the other one that I really want to quickly show, I'll show the configuration on how to get there, is the saving draft task forms. So if you are in a task like this and you've not done what I've done, which is approval, but you're doing a task form, if you go into the action panel now, this is new, so the ability to go into your action panel on the task form and actually set save. So you can actually save task forms now, not just the initiation form. So I would set that to save. And then I can save that into my Nintex. So if I've saved a task form, I can go back, revisit them, and respond. So again, this might be something that takes you out into the field. You can do some of it in the office, but you've got to go and visit a site to do the rest of it, so on and so forth. So lots of great examples there. I'll cancel that one and turn that one off. The other one was the SharePoint on-prem actions. So SharePoint on-premises, we've now got add attachment to an item, which is new, get item attachment, and also query list. So there's some new actions with SharePoint on-prem, and the other amended actions were Azure SQL. So query a SQL table and create a SQL record have had enhancements added to them. Okay, so I've published that, I can close it, didn't make any changes. Very, very quickly, Santa sleigh consent form, let's open that up. Fill in my details. So this one, again, Santa's great because he's got so many aliases, he can just keep on coming back to Santa at the north. You can go around all the dealerships and, oh, that wasn't me. That must have been somebody else. Let's see, popped in the date there already. Let's grab his, very quickly, grab his driving license, which we've prepared earlier. Next, get the vehicle details. So this is the Slarari. It is the S1, to coin the McLaren term uses, and there we go, year of manufacture. So I've got my units incorrect on that one. Let's submit. It's going to upload his driving license, it's going to upload the signature, my workflow is going to kick off. Again, we could redirect if we wanted to. I can check from my Nintex because it'll be in flight. There we go. Double check, show the form data. This is exactly what we do. Now if we were in an app, I'd have a much richer experience than this. I'd be able to see all of my running, my analytics in here if I wanted to, how many test drives has Santa been on today. Mrs. Claus might be looking at that one on a big screen. I thought you were supposed to be delivering presents. And I get a much better experience. So think about any of the data that's running through a workflow. I can now represent that in a page, embedding the forms, so on and so forth. So I heard a little ding. That's my my task has arrived. So let's open that up, drag that across. Dear Mrs. C, the man in the red suit is about to purchase a sleigh. It's the Sleighrari S1. She is like, oh, I know he's worked really hard this year. So what we might do is actually give the thumbs up. So you can actually use an emoji in these. I could say yes, I could say no, I could say whatever. So we're going to give it a thumbs up. That will approve that task and whatever happens after the workflow. So that was what I wanted to show you. Quite a few things that have been released. We'd love you to have a bit of a play around with those. Looking at the Nintex Assistant specifically to help you with those forms, the new save as draft capability in tasks, resuming authenticated start and task forms from when they were last saved. Think about how if you've got those people using screen readers, check out the accessibility changes that we've made as well. If you're using something else as a data source, consider Nintex data, Nintex tables. Really focusing on that app experience as well. So where this form was kicked off potentially through my Nintex, where this form and task were responded through my Nintex or through email, using an app to bring all of that together is a really strong capability to start building solutions. And responsible use of AI as well. I thoroughly encourage you to look at those settings, check out if it's worth it for you, have a play around, get your use case sorted out, and then turn them on. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for your efforts and for your feedback in the last year. It's been a pleasure working with each and every one of you, and I look forward to what you do with Nintex in 2025.